Hello, welcome to the Luthiers Podcast. Welcome to episode 163. Today I have with me from San Diego, Chuck Tweedy of Tweedy Guitars and Midnight Luthery. Chuck, welcome to the Luthiers Podcast.
I'm glad to be here. Very happy to be here.
Good. So for our listeners, to give a little background here of how we know each other, so we are both longtime, I guess you could call us alums of the Musical Instrument Makers Forum, the MIMF.com. And when I got on there in 2000, you were already there. You had already been doing this for a little while, and it was we saw each other on various threads here and there over the years, and then it was in 2011 when we both went to the GAL conference, the Guild of American Luthiers conference in San Diego, that we met for the first time, and then we met again and hung out in 2014. It's when I used one of your guitars in the open mic session, and we've stayed in touch all the while. So what was it? How did you get going in guitar building? What brought you to the MIMF, and just where did this whole story start for you?
Well, it started in 1999 or 1998. I was my wife had bought me a guitar, and because it was like a Christmas present or birthday present, I can't remember which. That was something unique. I really had never played guitar. I played like piano when I was a little kid, but it was a fun gift, and so I tried to play it, but I just tried a bunch of times, and it didn't work out. I'm just not a player, and I still can't play very well. I play enough to be able to basically tune and check out a guitar.
Yeah.
And people ask me that all the time. I know you play very well.
I'm okay.
But everybody says, people find out I've been guitars, and they say, and you play too, right? And I go, no, I don't play. I don't. And they're like, how can you do that? Well, I enjoy making the guitars, and that's the whole thing.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so I'm going off the rails. I knew I'd do that. My wife got me a guitar. I couldn't play it, so I decided maybe I'd have a better chance of building one of these things because I'm an engineer and pretty handy. So I went and got Compagno and Nadelson. I think from a bookstore, and it's the Bible. Do you have one of those?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's an outstanding book. It's really incredibly well written, and if you follow every step in there, you will make a guitar. You just have to follow every step.
I still go back and I look at some of the setup stuff for offsets and things for the fretboard and strings and everything like that, and like, okay, where's that supposed to? Oh yeah, that's right. And then go back to my drawing and put those measurements in.
It is. It's very handy, especially for things like I agree. With for fingerboard, before I had a real scale template, I'd go back and refer to it for the spacing of frets for 25.4 scale. So then I bought that, and I read it, and I read it I think twice before I decided I was actually going to do something about it because it was such a good book. So then I went and I actually didn't buy any real wood. I used cut-offs from decking and stuff like that. Really weird wood.
Yeah.
And after hanging out on the MIMF, I find that a lot of the newcomers do that. It's sort of I don't want to make a guitar out of the same old wood that everybody makes all the time. I want to make something different. And so
I did.
I did the same thing. Yeah, you did the same thing. So I was using like fence posts and crap like that. And my daughter thankfully gouged a hole in the top with a chisel one night.
Build this, honey.
Yeah, she just took it upon herself to start helping Daddy, and so she saved me from that, and I ended up buying some good wood.
Saving it. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, exactly. It would have been a disaster, I think, that top if I'd actually put that thing together. So I went and bought some real wood from LMI, and and finished my first guitar, and I still have it. It's not bad. It still has sort of a fence post back and sides, but the top is a real top, and that's sort of the most important thing. And fingerboard and bridge and all are totally good and solid. Okay, so that got me into building. I built that first guitar, and then I decided to build a nylon string guitar. If I could build one of those, because it's a different technique. The Combined Nadelson book is totally parallel path all the way down.
That's such a cool thing about that book. Yeah,
it's kind of amazing. So then I followed the directions in that again. I must have read it 5 times by the time I was done, building 2 guitars. And so my friends started getting interested, and one of them said, "Hey, you want to build me a guitar?" And I'm like, "Sure." And then I thought about it, and I'm like, I can't charge this guy for building a guitar. So I said, you know what? I'm not going to charge you anything except the materials. And he's like, "Oh, but I want to spend some money on this guitar." Well,
you got the right
you can buy some really cool materials. So he bought a master grade top and a AAA grade Koa back and sides.
Wow.
Just incredible materials, all from LMI. And it was $600 in materials.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was crazy. And so then I built that guitar, and that was really nice. It turned out good. That guy still has that guitar. These are little parlor guitars too. So my very first guitar was a little Martin size 1, I think, guitar. And then the classical guitar was standard classical size. They don't vary very much. And then so this third one was another one of those teeny little parlor guitar. You're building some of those, aren't you?
I had started a size 5. It's still sitting incomplete. The box is closed, the neck is blocked out and everything like that. It's just one of those things that got put on hold for it's been about 5 years now. Someday I'll get back to it. I remember
seeing parts and pieces of it on the MIMF, and I didn't realize the box was closed. That's awesome. You should finish.
Yeah, I know. It's like kind of nice little ring and tap and everything like that. Yeah, I need to circle back around to it someday for sure.
Yeah, you've gone so far hard over on the dark side. I was like super at this point. So I built 3 guitars, right?
Yeah.
And another friend asked me if I could build him a guitar. So I decided to change styles of guitar. So I triple O, basically a Martin OM. All acoustic, and I'm like all into the acoustic thing. Everything has to be acoustic, and the best woods is fun, going out and buying wood. I have a pretty good wood collection from years of going to hardwood places here in San Diego. There's a few good ones. And when I find something, fantastic, like figured piece of koa or like lined piece of cocobolo, there's a lot of cocobolo in San Diego. And so, well, it used to be. I don't know if there still is, because I think that guy got shut down. But anyways, so I bought a lot of wood, and I had the good stuff. And I found some satin wood, and so I built the 4th guitar for this guy out of satin wood. And I also had the bright idea of entering it in the Del Mar Fair. So for many years, I was putting guitars in the Del Mar Fair in the Design and Wood show, which is like the biggest wood working show west of the Mississippi.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it actually is it's a really good show at the Del Mar Fair.
So it's not so, because we have like the Oregon State Fair, and there's like a crafts thing you can enter in. I've got a friend who always says like, "Oh man, you got to enter a guitar in the crafts thing." I'm like, I don't know, man, it's kind of cheesy. So it's not that. It's not like the state fair, and you get a blue ribbon, next to the jams or something like that. This is something.
I got a blue ribbon jam one year.
This is a different thing. This is a different kind of show you're talking about.
Well, okay, so no, the Design and Wood show. If you look it up on the webs, it's like I think it's Fine Woodworkings. Design and Wood show.
Okay.
It's San Diego Fair now. It used to be called the Del Mar Fair, but it's at San Diego County Fair at the Del Mar Fairgrounds, and it's a serious show. Okay. There's some really fantastic stuff in there, and there's usually about a dozen or so instruments, violins and steel string guitars mainly.
Okay. That's cool.
So I entered into that, and I got an honorable mention. Didn't really do that well. The musical instrument section is actually very competitive. So, but it was great. I mean, it was fun to go and fun to have the thing, on display. It's my fourth guitar. It looks pretty good, and it was satin wood, which is really beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
And cocobolo, all the side, the fingerboard and accoutrements for cocobolo. So that was really nice guitar. And so then after that, it sort of becomes a blur, because then people started asking me to build guitars. It was before I finished the fourth guitar that I built. Before his guitar, the OM was complete, I had another order. And from that must have been 2002 it must have been 2002. From 2002 until 2012. So for 10 years, I was continuously building on commission.
That's awesome.
It was actually kind of stressful, because I had a real job, of course, and I was building on commission, and I would, sort of say, it takes me about 6 months to build a guitar. Inevitably, I'd be starting another one by the time I finished the first, the prior one, and that would just extend the build time, because I'd be roughing out lumber, and I didn't have a great shop at the time. And so I would have a dusty mess, and if I were to try to finish the other guitar, I'd have to clean up, and anyways, it really put me back. And so I would average 8 months per guitar. And so people would be 2 months behind. They never really, complained about it, but anyways, I felt bad. So it was, it really was. It was kind of a
high
stressful
standards. Yeah.
And my work would suffer, and it was just a really funny thing. So that went on, and I did continue to put guitars in the wood show, and that actually helped, because people would see them and contact me and say, I want to build the guitar, or I want you to build a guitar. And it was all acoustics, so I started building 12 strings. That was the fifth guitar I built was a 12-string. And so I tried to figure that out, and I built about 6 or 7 of those by now. In that group, in that time, I built 3 more 12 strings. And then I have one here. So it's 5. I've built 5 12 strings. They're fun. They're a pain in the ass to set up, though. Good Lord. How many strings? You just get so used to turning the string winding knob. Yeah. It just goes.
But this was at a time just to understand the timing of this and the bigger picture of things. It was the late 90s. When Benedetto was the first book I got in 99 or so, 99, 2000 or so. And then I got on the internet, and I started just putting in in the search field, archtop guitar. And so you get a ton of stuff, of course. Yeah, but then I started, I was completely, even though Benedetto was obviously, what would be considered a boutique builder, I didn't really understand that concept yet. I was just like, whoa, here's a guy. This is kind of cool. I thought it was kind of sort of old world artisan kind of stuff. But then I got on the interwebs, and I found out holy crap, it's like everybody and their cousin is doing this. And then you get on the forums, and you're like, wow, there's a lot of people who really want to do this. And there are people who do it, part-time, and people who do it, have been doing it forever. And there's this really interesting, community. And then, of course, getting connected with the Guild of American Luthiers. But there was this, kind of kindling of interests and in the boutique world. But then right around about when you're talking about these commissions happening, it went from just sort of, this little interest in oh, hey, there's this, it's not a factory instrument. There's these people doing it, and it's kind of cool, and they're doing it in their garage, or they're doing it in their small shop. But then it just it was boom, wildfire. It was exploded, and you kind of got to be part of that early wave. Would you describe what you were seeing and as something like that?
Yeah, that's very true. So when I first got on the musical instrument maker forum. Well, to tell you the truth, I was on the musical instrument maker. Oh, I can't speak. Sounds like I'm. Yeah, I sound like I'm a bad connection, don't I? So when I got on there at 99, I only was hanging around for a short period of time, and then I kind of left it, and I started just concentrating on reading Compagno and Nadelson. Excuse me, and I didn't rediscover the MIMF until it must have been 2000, 2001, something like that. So after I'd built my first guitar, and then I'd been using Compagno and Nadelson to the letter, right? And so then I realized, wait a second, there's a lot of new information out here, and it's really, I mean, you learn a lot, but you have to have a good foundation of knowledge about lutherie to be able to weed out the junk that's on the internet, because there is a ton of junk, a ton of misinformation, and it's like impossible for newbies to understand the difference, because they have no experience, and there's so many subtle little detailed things about building guitars and materials and glues and finishes. Oh my gosh, it just goes on and on. Yeah. So luckily I had built the guitar, and I'd lived by Compagno and Nadelson, and you're right, there was a huge increase in interest, and then I think when we first got on the, I really started paying attention to the MIMF, it was growing all the time, and there was new people adding, and there were, pages and pages of posts every day.
Yeah.
Right? And the guild conventions were big and growing. So I can't remember when the first guild convention I attended was, but it was medium size, and then it grew, and so 28 or whenever that one was, it was 2007 or 2008. Right around that time was when I went, and it was huge. There's tons of people there. Yeah, and it was the golden age of lutherie. Yeah, and that's sure. If you talk to some of those guys like Charles Fox, and they had talks. We probably attended one of those talks. Yeah. About the end of the golden age. Yeah. And so that was in 2014. Yeah. And so, there was a lot of information. There was a lot of people. There was a lot of learning. And thankfully, there were some people on that MIMF that were really dedicated to getting it right. Yeah. Yeah. Mario and, several others were diligent about it. Yep. Mark and the guy from Texas, I can't remember his name. Anyways, they're super diligent about keeping things right. Right, yeah. And then Deb, the lady that ran it, was so strict about rules.
That was, but that's really interesting, because just thinking back on that now, because she really policed that thing, and of course it seems now like who moderates forums anymore? They're just like free for alls, and they're just sometimes just shit shows. But she really did a good job of keeping it clean and keeping it real, and keeping it non-commercial too. That was another thing she did. I remember going back to some threads and things and finding some of my posts removed because I had made a mention about some
vendor or something,
something like that. It was kind of like, oh crap, I got Deb whapped.
Yeah, it was serious. It really kept things. It kept it quality information. That's for sure. Yeah. But if you go on there now, I only go on like once a month, and the pages hardly change. There's hardly 5 new threads added, and really, like a few posts a day.
Well, I think a lot of the I think especially with Instagram and Facebook, and especially a lot of Facebook groups. We the Lutherists have a Facebook community, and that has some diehards on there, and I don't know if people tend to go to one forum or the other, or one social media group or the other, sort of based on recommendations of friends and things, and I think they might choose those based on where they think the most legit information's coming from. But yes, I think a lot of the forums have slowed down a bit, because I do check the MIMF, probably every other week. I also check the OLF. I check the ANZLF, the Australia New Zealand one, and yeah,
Yep.
it seems like those unfortunately have really slowed down. You can definitely do some searches on there and find just like depths, just super depth knowledge and information and
Yep.
suggestions and things. But it's not ain't what it used to be back in the day.
No, it is not what it used to be. And I'm sure that's what it is. It's an old format, it's that the bulletin board format, and now that is just not. That's not cool. I mean, more like aren't so necessarily Facebook, but even like Instagram. I'm sure there's tons of people that post, little. I haven't really looked, but well, actually, I know because it was on Instagram for a while. And I got tons of Luthery stuff. I just never really followed it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a different world of social media for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so then let me go back to my story. So
yes.
This is all about me, Jason. Come on.
Well, we take these little side trails, and we'll come back to you.
Yeah. Anyway, so to go along with the trend that we were just talking about.
Yeah.
So then after the financial crash of 2008. I still had commissions, and as a matter of fact, some guy that I was working with commissioned a really nice flamenco guitar.
Mm-hmm.
So that was around 2009, 10, must have been 10, and that was kind of the end of it. That's really the last concurrent, just continuous group of instruments that I was building under commission. And then the financial crash, and I didn't have really I didn't have any clients. I was like, what the hell is going on? And so I actually started building guitars, and I built 3 guitars, a 12-string, a triple-aught size guitar, and then what was the third one? I can't remember. Anyways, I think it was a maple version of, it wasn't the maple guitar that you're familiar with, it was a different one. And so I was just like, all right, I will build them, they will come.
Uh-huh.
And that really never happened. I was trying to build under a certain type of guitar. I got into the canted top. I don't know if you ever saw one of those guitars that I built.
I know what you're talking about.
Sort of like a Humphreys style, the Humphreys classical guitar where the strings are pulling up on the top.
Anyway, so I was building. The top is not in plane with the fretboard. The top is at a negative angle to the fretboard.
Yeah, and I'd complicated it even further than that by bending the top, so the top has a little bit of an arch that dove away from the bottom, and it gives you better access for trying to play on higher frets, and they sounded like great guitars. So it was like, all right, I got this idea. I don't have any clients. I'm going to build this because it interests me. So I built those, and nobody wanted to buy them. Nobody was just driving by my house and buy a guitar. So when I finished them, I started looking around. For shops that would sell my guitars, and I went to all the shops in in San Diego, and they're all just regular downtown style guitar shops, and they'd look at my instrument and go, "Yeah, that's really nice. We'll never sell that here."
Because we'd have to
show us $100
the seagulls.
Yeah, and they would all have the same sob story. So it was really kind of dark. I was not really walking. I was driving around to all these guitar shops because San Diego is big and they're all over the place. And they're all saying, well, we might be closing next year. Oh my gosh! And they're like, those are really nice guitars. Took 2 of them, but they weren't going to buy them. They weren't going to hang them. Yeah. So that was kind of depressing. But then I decided to try Buffalo Brothers. So Buffalo Brothers is sort of a world-renowned guitar shop in San Diego, in Carlsbad. And I sort of worked up there, so I should have gone there first, but I didn't. And they had really high-end guitars, and high-end both electric and acoustic guitars. And so I said, will you hang my guitars? And they would. So they took those 2 guitars, and it was great because it was a nice shop, really nice shop, and people cared about it, and they were very good about keeping fine instruments in good shape.
Yeah, good.
And so then what happened was they sold both of those guitars. So I was like, all right, I'm going to make another guitar. They'll sell through the shop. So I put another guitar in that shop, and it closed down. It changed owners, and I was checking on the guitar. So the guitar's in the shop, and basically what I do is I just go by there every couple of weeks and just pop in so they know me, so all the salesmen know my face.
Yeah.
And I get to check on the guitar. It was really close to work, so it was like super convenient to go in there. So I did that, and they had one guitar that filed for bankruptcy. They kept the guitar and gave me $300.
Oh.
So I got kind of burned on that one. Sucks.
You can just do that. Yeah, we filed for bankruptcy. We just like.
Well, they got lawyers, and I'm not going to hire a lawyer to get $1,000 out of the guitar. So at that point, I decided to look around a little bit more, and I found Santa Barbara Guitar Bar. So I'm from Santa Barbara. I grew up in Santa Barbara, so we go up there on occasion, and my relatives actually sent me a link to this shop up there, and it was a boutique shop, really nice. So I went up there and checked it out, and yeah, it was like, okay, I want to sell guitars in here. So I talked to the shop owner, and I was just up there on vacation, and I said, I build guitars, and I didn't have my website at the time. Would you hang my guitars? And they're like, oh yeah, sure, guy, yeah, whatever. You build guitars, that's great, real nice. Sure, come back with a guitar. We'll talk to you then. And so I was like, all right, it's a nice place. Let's see if they accept my guitars. So I had, like I said, I had 3 guitars, and one of them I still had. And I was building the 3 more guitars, one of which is the maple guitar you're familiar with. Mm-hmm. To another 12-string, and which I still have. And then, a little Honduras rosewood parlor guitar. So, then I then went back up there. I'm sorry, I'm stammering over myself. I went up there and brought the guitar, and they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, you can hang your guitar here."
Oh yeah. Thanks for believing me before.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got to be. That's how you have to be, because anybody can build a thing that looks like a guitar.
Yeah.
But you have to build a good guitar.
Yeah.
So that was my whole deal, and it always has been and always will be. And so they took it. So they took that guitar, and they said, "Yeah, you got any more guitars?" And I was like, "I was building the 3 that you're familiar with." Mm-hmm. And then it took me a while. It must have been a long time, because I had changed jobs. So I have a day job, of course, mm-hmm. and the position I'm in now started taking a lot more time out of my day. So it took me a while to build those guitars, and then I put them up in the shop. And this was just 2 or 3 years ago. Must have been 2015 or 2014. I don't know. I have to look. Maybe 2015. Anyways, sorry. And then I brought those guitars up. I put 2 of them in that shop, and they had sold the first one, mm-hmm. the Honduras rosewood parlor guitar. And then they called me up. Oh, we're closing. And the instruments had been there for, I think, a month and a half, 6 weeks. Yeah. And they said, you got to come up this weekend, because we're going to shut our doors, and all of the merchandise has to either get sold, or they're going to sell some. They sold it to Reverb or something like that.
Wow.
In mass. I don't know. So
I think it's your fault.
Want to buy a guitar?
It's like you bring your guitars to places and it shuts them down.
Well, I got a stack of them in my shop right now.
Yeah.
But I want to build another one.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
I totally do. It doesn't make any sense right now, though.
I think your story here and this trajectory that we're talking about is really important to understand, because it's the boutique guitar market, the non $150 guitar and strap and amplifier kit that you can get on Amazon. It requires a certain clientele with a certain disposable income, and it's the volatility of the economy
Yep.
can definitely cause some turmoil in the boutique markets. Whether you're talking, it doesn't matter. My brother's a hot rod builder in Boise, and he was in a really nice shop, making a good salary, and 2008 came along, and he was the first one to be laid off.
God. Yeah.
So it touches everything, the high craft, the high that market where it really
Yeah.
depends on people to be able to understand the difference between one of those little packets that you can get at Guitar Center or whatever, and a really high end instrument. What's in the time that you've been doing this, and you've seen all of this this wildfire of lutherie kind of burst around you, and you kind of growing with that. What are some trends that you saw that what are some trends that you saw that really looked like they were going to work well and maybe did take off, and what were some trends that seemed to kind of like rise and fizzle?
Yeah. So you mean in the world of acoustic guitar design or
I mean,
features?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's actually. So I went to the 2005 Healdsburg Guitar Festival, and there Charles Fox had his own shop, and he was building double top guitars. And there were like, I don't know, 10 other people that were displaying guitars that had double tops. So that was one of those things that was red hot in 2005. Every guitar was going to be a laminate of two spruce veneer layers, essentially, and honeycomb core.
Yeah.
And I heard a bunch of those guitars at that show because they have all these listening sessions. And you know what? They don't sound great.
Really?
They sound. It doesn't sound like wood. There was one session in particular where they had a double top guitar and a standard, solid spruce top guitar, and they were both flamenco guitars built by the same builder. I wish I could remember who it was. Anyways, they built them as close together. It wasn't Alan Kurth, who is somebody that we both know. Yeah. Anyways, so they built the two and they played them in the session, and I just sort of closed my eyes and listened to both of them. And the one that had the solid top sounded like, it sounded like I was in Spain. I closed my eyes and imagined I was in Spain, with a beautiful evening with flamenco dancers and flowers and wine. It sounded great. And then they'd play the double top and it was louder, but it sounded like I was in a cardboard box factory.
Oh, no.
It just had no character whatsoever. So I'm guessing that's probably why that trend faded. And plus, it was extremely difficult to make those tops.
Yeah, it's very labor intensive.
Yeah,
and you can't screw up at all because you only got half a millimeter of
exactly. That's it. If you screw up, then the whole thing's just going to fold when you string it up. You won't even know that you screwed up.
Yeah,
it becomes delaminated. It's done. Okay, so let's see. There's several other trends. There's the armrest, so the arm bevel on guitars. That's a keeper right there. That's going to stay. There's the sound ports in the upper bout of an acoustic guitar. I think that's going to be a boutique thing forever. Yeah. I don't know whether that's really going to take off. That's for intimate, where you're playing it and it sounds great to you, and if somebody's sitting right next to you, it sounds great to them. But I don't think it really does anything for anybody else. Let's see. What's another big trend?
So speaking of, finding things out through the conventions and things like that, local builder Mike Doolin, with his bolt-on and adjustable pivot neck joint, that was kind of a big deal.
Yes. And
it's kind of it wasn't completely, we're not saying like that's why Taylor's doing it, but it's definitely something that he did it in such a refined and tasteful way that it made a lot of other people go, oh, So this could actually work, and to have that like fine, pitch and yaw pivot adjustability, like, hey, that's kind of a good idea.
Yeah, it's a really good idea. It's so that's kind of counter to another traditional trend, and that would be a dovetail joint. So I make a sort of a diamond joint on the headstock, as you know.
Yeah.
And it's a rather intricate joint that joins the headstock to the neck shaft. And I worked it out, so it's not that hard for me to do, but it's kind of something that when a shop owner, somebody who sees a lot of guitars sees one, and I've had more than one of these guys that I showed these things to, say, wow, that's a really nice joint. How do you join your neck to your body? Dovetail joint, right? I'm like, actually, no, I use a bolt-on because it's a lot easier to reset the neck and to make sure that everything's totally perfect. Whereas with the dovetail joint, you almost always have gaps and holes, and it's just not a very good fit because it's so fiddly to get it right that you might only have 3 points of contact in that whole joint. The rest is filled with glue, perhaps. So then the whole mechanical adjustable neck joint, which I totally believe in and I think is great, runs counter to the other desires of people that want a dovetail joint because they think it's the cat's meow.
I mean, just like you don't tell anybody and let them play for a while and make them decide it.
But they all know to look for screws. So as soon as they see a screw head on the inside of the heel block, that's like, no.
That's what you cover with your label.
Yeah, that's sort of the deal. Yeah.
Well,
anyways, I can't think of any other trends.
Yeah, I do have to say here. Speaking of listening sessions, one of the first times that we hung out together was at the Steel String listening session at the 2011 JL conference, and those are some of the most amazing opportunities to really hear how wood contributes in an acoustic guitar, how wood contributes to the sound. Because, what do? They play like 30 guitars in a row. It's one player playing sometimes the same riff or motif or excerpt or something like that in a row. And you really get to hear like, oh, this is what spruce sounds like. Oh, this is what redwood sounds like. This is what western red cedar sounds like. This is what maple back sounds like. This is what rosewood back sounds like. And I got to toot your horn a little bit because
that's so true.
Yeah, I got to toot your horn a little bit because at the 2014 show, you put that maple and subalpine fir guitar in the playing session, and our friend Mark played it, and there were some really nice instruments in that show, and yours was the only one that garnered unsolicited and impromptu, just like spontaneous applause from the audience, because it just had this sparkle and the shimmer, and it's a fantastic guitar, and that's why I'm buying it from you.
That's awfully nice of you to say. Your PayPal account just does $100 right now.
But there was, talking about some other trends and stuff. I don't know enough about this to really make some, as I've only heard like one or two guitars. There's the Australian method, the Gore and Gillette method, which has got all of those parabolic shaped braces with carbon fiber toe and all this counterweights built into the sides and everything like that, and it's all this like very, very specific formulas and deflection and stuff like that. And like you're talking about, and I'm not dissing on this one guy's guitar in particular, or this guy's technique or his own work, but as a representative in that lineup of instruments, it sounded. I was nonplussed, really. It wasn't louder. It was very, very even and balanced, but there just wasn't enough of everything that I wanted to hear. There was, like your guitar.
It's what we're seeing, really. Anyways, I think we have a connection issue.
No, we're good.
So the I think what we're seeing is a microcosm of, why the traditional designs are the traditional designs, because people have been monkeying with them for centuries, and they're really, we're building the same type of guitar that C.F. Martin built in at the turn of the 1900s. Right? So, there's a reason why that's happening. People have been experimenting for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I've ever heard those guitars, but it's good to try. Maybe somebody will come up with something better someday.
Yeah.
It's gonna be me.
Yeah. It's all me. It's definitely necessary, I think, for people to prove some things out. There's definitely the double top phenomenon in the classical world. There's the lattice bracing, as put forth by Greg Smallman, and again another Australian. Those are catching on a little bit more in the classical world, because you've got people like John Williams, not Star Wars John Williams, but the classical guitar John Williams, who are pretty much sold on those instruments, and they're super light. Well, the tops are super light. The bodies are made a bit like tanks, and then they've got that just. I mean, they're just sound pumps. They're just there's like speaker cones. They just send so much sound out to those back rows of your concert hall.
I don't know if I've ever heard one of those. I don't know whether, but they are supposed to be very loud, and I think that's what the real deal with those is. If you want to play to a lot of people, you gotta be loud. And the one thing that everybody sort of comments on when you go to one of these guild conventions, and you might have been one of the people that has said this, if you go to the steel string listening session and you go to the classical guitar listening session, you will be shocked and amazed at how loud classical guitars, nylon string guitars are. Yeah. They can just pump out the sound. And so if you can make that even louder, like I guess Smallman has, then you've got a really loud instrument. You can entertain a lot more people with that.
But even that, what's the guy, the left-hand player who builds the 17th, 18th century, like the Panormos and the Lacotes. Is it Buckland? James Buckland, is that his name?
Yes, that sounds correct.
Yeah, we went to one of his sessions, and he's playing a late 1700s reproduction gut, strings
with a teeny body.
Yeah, with a tiny body, with frets placed by the rule of 18, and
tied gut frets.
Yeah, and we're in the back of the hall, and it was clear. It was clear as day. It's there's a lot of things that you can do with new carbon fiber, with space age materials and stuff like that. We're talking about gut strings, and
you can do it with the natural materials. It's amazing. It's great.
And that optimization that has been happening for centuries is
exactly.
There's a lot of you've got to trust a lot of that stuff. When you hear it, you're like, absolutely. Damn, that's the real deal.
All right, so coming back to me, because remember, it's all about me. So my current situation is I have pieces of guitars flung about, and I'm working really hard at my day job, and I'm starting to play with contact microphones. I want to start just listening to the guitars that I have a little bit, because I've never really collected much data. I've really built mostly just by feel, just by how the wood feels and how it sounds, and we both been on this MIMF forum for long enough to know that the people that really tout, like Alan Curra, tout, measuring everything. He's part of guitar building royalty, I would say.
Yeah, for sure.
And basically, that's the truth. And I've never really done that. I've just done it because at work I keep notes on things, but at home, if I'm building in the shop and it's working out, I just take the notes that I need and refer back to Compagno and Nadelson when I need to.
Right.
So now I'm sort of getting a little bit more interested in actually measuring the guitars and keeping track of thicknesses and weights. I got to get a good scale, and then other things like like I said, contact microphones. Just little piezo microphones. You can stick them on anything in the guitar, and you can listen to it. Record it on your PC through the sound card. It's just super easy. And so I'm just sort of playing with that because I have the time, and I have a few guitars that I can compare. One of which will eventually go away, but the other three I think I have here I can play with all I want.
So when you're collecting that information, are you going to actually run it through one of those what are those called? Those, I'm making hand signs here, and I'm showing graphs, plot graphs. What are those called?
Thing is, I have a background in signal processing and that kind of stuff. So get ready for some serious geekdom here. So what I do is I just collect it. I run Linux on my computer, and I use this program called Qtractor, which is an audio processing program, and it also will record. So I use it to record stereo, and so I can get two contact microphones independent of each other on the two channels of the stereo microphone input, just to a sound card. And then from there, it creates an OGG file. I can import that into MATLAB. And so MATLAB is a mathematical analysis language and environment. And I can plot it out, just like you said.
Yeah. And
I can do, FFTs on it and get the frequency content of it. And right now I'm just trying to get it so I can get good data, because it's like some of the microphones I got were crap. So I bought some more, and I'm waiting for them in the mail and stuff like that. But it's fun to play. I don't have much to do in the shop. The other project I'm working on is a replacement handle for a machete from somebody at work. They're like, I was hacking on something and the handle broke. You do what?
Yes, it'll be $900.
No. See, I have to pay the piper on that one. I'm doing it for free.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is. I mean, you've got. I mean, obviously, you're saying you have the background on that to, once you have the data, to know what to do with. But being able to
know what to do with it, I'm just selecting.
No, that's exactly it. Because I mean, when it comes to going back to the Gore and Gillette, the Australian guys that have the very expensive books. If there's anything that those guys did really well, it is that they came up with some good numbers for weights of various components, densities of different components, stiffnesses of different components, the dynamic relationship of various components when a string is pulling on a bridge, and the amount of pull up and the rotation and stuff. All of that is super legit stuff, and they tied that together in a way that a lot of other people that we saw on the forums were trying to make sense of, but they tied that together in really, really meaningful and useful ways. And I think that kind of stuff, I mean, that it's you're talking about very complex and very, very subtle relationships between components.
I got to get those expensive books. That sounds really good.
because weighing your bridge, and if you weigh every bridge on every instrument, that's a really good start. But
I know, man.
Are you?
Wish I had a good scale.
Are you doing deflection testing of your tops? Are you doing Are you doing deflection testing of your braces? Are you doing
no?
Are you doing Helmholtz resonance of your closed box system? It's just all of those things.
That's all book. It's not. I'm just too lazy to do
it. It would be really interesting to check in with you in a few years and to find out if you've created a library or a catalog enough to have started making some sense about some correlations between some different construction choices and the results.
Yeah, I mean that's the goal, definitely. I'm joking around about it now, but it's I want to retire from the day job and have have the house paid off and the kids through college and be done with all of that, and be able to build guitars seriously again. And that's where I want to go with it, is to actually understand what correlates to a good guitar. And the first thing I'm going to do is measure the shit out of the guitar I'm selling you, because that thing is amazing.
It is a Canon. It's pretty sweet. Yeah.
Yeah. So I that's actually one of the motivations, is that I gotta measure this thing before it disappears, and try to reproduce it. I actually have a set of top and back that are made to match it. So I'm going to try to build a matching box before it goes by.
Okay.
But see how that goes.
So what do you think? So you started out with kind of simple intentions. You got swept up in this explosion of lutherie and the boutique world. Yep. You were a casualty of the Great Recession, and now
the golden age of lutherie.
Yeah, and so where, like, how do you think that aside from just continuing to build the best instruments that you think that you can, and having good data to give you reason to do that, what do you think is going to get you back into that? Maybe not solid commissions for a decade, but steady work. What do you think you need to do to make that happen?
No, I think I just, like I jokingly said before, I have to get to a place in my life where I can concentrate on it again before I get too old, right? I've been doing this for a long time now. So in '99, when I built my first guitar, I was in my low 30s, and now I'm 50, right? So you can't wait too long. Got to be able to hear what you're doing and stuff like that. So I gotta get on this, and so that's really the mode. That's when I want to do it. So in a few years, I really want to start thinking about doing that. And I think it also has to do with the environment. I'm much more mercenary about guitar building than you are, I think. Like I built an electric guitar. I was Mr. Acoustic Guitar, and that's all I cared about for first 10 years of my whole stint. And now I built an electric guitar based on an Ibanez. It's not even my own shape or design or anything like that. And it was fun. It was great. I love building electric guitars too.
Welcome to the dark side.
Right. So when I go forward, I'm gonna try to build the best acoustic guitar I can, because that's always going to be something that you can do. Is make a great acoustic guitar, and there'll always be a market for that, even though it's maybe vanishingly small. Yeah. But I think if I can sell electric guitars, I would be more than happy doing that. I think it's great, and then also I can apply electrical. I like you wind your own pickups. I think that's awesome. That's exactly the kind of thing I want to do. And so that might be a motivation too. If I've already been thinking about different ways of doing pickups and some stuff about that, just based on building one and thinking about it too much, right? So that would be a lot of fun. And the thing is, we're subject to what the market is as well, right? You can only build so many guitars before you have to sell one, before it just clutters up the house.
Tell me about it.
So I remember going to the Taylor Factory years ago, and the Taylor Factory tour, they at the beginning of it, they show you the lobby and they give you a little spiel, and in that spiel they say, Eric Clapton's Unplugged, which is fantastic work, changed that company. They were dying and shrinking every year until 1991, I think that was, and then after that, that was the spawning of this golden age of lutherie that you had been talking about. In the 90s and into the 2000s, and so they accredited that work, which got a lot of people interested in acoustic instruments. And right now, we don't have that. There's that I know of, there's no hugely popular acoustic instrument or that type of player. Rock more than country. There's always country, but the music is much more electronic and I don't know. what those kids listen to. Kids aren't listening to guitars anymore. That's my point.
They're listening to ukuleles. That's there's a resurgence of ukes. Yeah,
you could do a whole show on that, man. A whole show on the ukulele trend of the mid 2000s. Holy moly! I didn't catch it on that. I was like, no, I'm building acoustic guitars because they are the best thing in the world. Your little ukuleles are just miniature minions. Jeez. Now I'm like, I'll build anything. I'm on the side of the road with a build for food sign, man. Anyways, I digress.
That's okay. We leave the trail and we come back to it. But we are coming up on about an hour here. Is there anything? Are there any other places where can people find if they want to take a peek, take a gander at some of your instruments? Where can they look?
They can look at tweedyguitars.com, so TWEEDY guitars.com, or midnightluthery.com. They point to the same place, and that's Midnight Luthery, which is easy to spell. Everybody gets it right.
Yeah.
That's why I have so much traffic on my site. Anyways, so I do have a website, and it actually has some pictures of really nice guitars. It has pictures of the guitars that I have now. Actually, one of them is not on there. But it gives a pretty good background, and some of the weird instruments I've built is on there, are on there. The canted top guitars and lute guitar that I built once. Not a lute, cittern guitar I built once. Yeah. So
are there any regular shows that you go to that anybody could come and try something out or come and talk to you?
Not currently, but I hope to be attending those again in the future.
All right. Okay.
I know you go to up there in Portland, right?
Yeah, we have the Maryland show coming up here at the end of April, and that's always a good place to talk to people. And,
that's right. It's always April.
Yeah. Well,
someday, man.
We just got to get you up here and just we got a nice guest room. You can stay with us. You're welcome anytime.
Well, if I'm building guitars, I'll need. As somebody told me long ago, there's hundreds of dollars to be made in this industry.
Right. You need to, like maybe you can make some cash on the side with some T-shirts that say that.
Yeah, I really I should perk up a little bit here because I might be downing your audience. Is there's no more world. It's coming back, man. It's coming back.
It is. It comes back in all sorts of different shapes and sizes.
Exactly. We just got to find out what that next shape and/or size is. Great. Yeah. No, I'm serious. Whatever it is, there needs to be. I think that's one of the things that I really love about building guitars is it keeps a tradition alive. It keeps something alive that in our digital world that we live in. Social media and all of the the mass-produced cars and phones and all of the stuff in our life. It's really kind of soulless, I hate to say, but all of that stuff cranks out of a factory, and even a wooden guitar from a factory is nice. It's made out of something good and real, and you stick your nose in the sound hole and smell it, and it smells like wood.
It's analog.
Yeah, it's analog. It's true analog. There you go. That's actually a good point. It's our life is not analog anymore.
No, it's not. All right. Well,
my son is starting to practice trombone, so we should probably end.
Trombone coming up. Well, thank you, Luthiers listeners, for joining us this week with Chuck Tweedy. Remember, you can help support us here on the Luthiers podcast by becoming a patron. Just click that button right there. You can also interact with us a little bit and tell us a little bit more about who you are and your interests by completing our listener survey. That's always there and connected to our to each and every episode. You're going to find in the podcast description some links to Chuck's website. And Chuck, it's been very fun here. It's been nice to reconnect with you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, and hopefully in a few years, like you said, I'll have collected more data, built some more instruments, and I'd be glad to be back on again.
Awesome.
Try not to ramble so much next time.
No, it's rambling is what this show is made on. It's like if we just had a Q&A thing every time, it would just be like a 30-minute show, and it's like nobody wants to listen to that. People like stories. People like real stories.
Wait till you get Mark on there.
Yeah. he's on the list.
Talk about rambling.
All right. Thank you very much, folks, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.